Alright, first thing you're going to do, open up your options tab, turn off the music, turn the sound down to whatever you're comfortable with, and turn the footsteps down. I'm just going to go through all these settings and explain what I would change and why. Always run on. You doing a stealth character, you probably want unless hidden on, auto open doors, corpses. That's up to you. You can set it to auto open corpses, skipped empty, and then when you're not targeting, that way it won't try to open a corpse when you have a spell up. This is personal preference, but you could use either of these. I prefer the line, but you can also do the percentage above the person. I wouldn't change any of these. This just shows you on the character model whether they're green or red, whether they're poisoned or paralyzed. Aura under feet. This just gives you a quick glimpse whether they're blue, red, white, green. And you can set your party members to green even if they are murderer characters. Grid loot, I prefer both. It will show a grid of all the loot that you can click and loot quickly, but you can also look at the corpse if you want to check containers for items by clicking on them. Auto close when no items. So when you loot the last thing, it just closes the corpse. Circle of transparency. I don't recommend having this on, but just have a macro for it. I usually have mine as equal sign, so I can just hit it really quick, see something that is hidden. Usually turn off stat skill changes because I don't want to see it. I can usually tell by my buff bar when I'm weakened or debuffed in any way. Target range indicator. This is really important because when you teleport, it will give you a number, or really any spell. It will give you a number on your cursor that tells you how close you are, whether you can actually hit the spell or not. And it's really useful for casting teleport, or doing a rope, or doing both in combination. You'll be able to see the exact tiles you can go. This, you never want this on none. It will mess with your, you'll try to target and you drag your mouse. You actually want this always disabled, but I will set one of them to control. I'll usually set players to one and monsters to the other. That way, if I want to, I can hold down the key, but when I left click, I'm not gonna attempt to drag. That way it's not messing up my spells that target the ground. Disable extended party bars will just make your party member bars only have health. That's totally up to you, whether you want that or not. Hide vegetation. Fields is preference. I go with tile. It'll just make a paralyzed field or an energy field tile-based and color-based. And then trees to blocks will make all trees look like that instead of what a tree actually looks like, so it's very easy to navigate when you're on the run. That's the first tab. Go to video. Don't really need to change anything in here. It's just you can change the zoom of the game if you would like it to be higher. I usually have mine around 6, I think. You always want this disabled, especially if you have vines on your mouse wheel. Light level. Obviously turn this on so you can see what the fuck's going on in the game. None of these other settings really matter. Macros. I'm not really going to talk about macros too much, except for want to give an example of how to make a spell macro that is going to tab you in and out of combat so you don't waste your weapon hits or your wrestles. What you're going to want to do is start with War Peace, find it, and then whatever spell you want, just say telekinesis. And then what you're going to want to do is add a delay. Found the sweet spot to be about 70 for not being too long, but long enough to where your tab goes twice instead of just once. And then you're going to add War Piece. Again, end of it. I don't have that spell, so obviously it doesn't work, but you can see it tabbing twice. Works. Yeah. Sometimes 70 is a little fast. If I do 75, it's fine. That's an example of how to do a spell macro. That way you're not wasting your weapon hits when it matters. Tooltips, you don't really need to change anything for tooltips, fonts, speech. This is a personal preference, but I know a lot of people play with it off, but I have it so when I hit keys that are letter keys, it doesn't attempt to type until I hit enter, and then my macros don't work. Nothing else in here you really have to change. Combat spells, especially if you're going to be a red character, obviously don't want query before attack, and hold tab for combat, that is automatically off. That's bad. You want to change the colors of anything, what different innocents, murderers, friends look like. You can change that here. You can change the format of the spell if you would prefer to have it old school and just see the actual power words instead of the spell. That's how I have mine set. Counters, it's totally up to you. You can have as many of these bars in a row as you want, and you can drag an item to them and it will count how many you have. I don't use it, but some people do. Info bar, I think the info bar is super important. I will generally not have my name here. I'll have these, and then probably my crim timer. I usually like to have that, but there's quite a few things you can add here. You want PvP cooldown, bandage timer, things like that, how many followers you have, you can add that. Container scale, I usually like to put it up a little bit just because default is pretty small. You don't want to scale items because that'll make the items massive. None of the other settings in here matter. None of these matter. Nameplates, you'll hit Control Shift to turn them on and have them always active. You can add health bars to them. Use nameplate background as health bar. The whole bar will act as a health bar, be easier to see. This just stops them. If you have this unchecked, you can just right click them and turn them off. But if you turn this setting on, you cannot just right click them. You have to hold Alt to get rid of a bar, so it keeps you from getting rid of them by accident. Compact makes them just a bit more smaller. Helps when you have a lot on your screen. You can make different entries here. You just show players, specific types of players, blue, red, etc. Very customizable. settings in game that covers about everything that I would change for default. For Razor, things you should change. I like the setting on show incoming people. It will flash their name when they run up to you. Don't like this setting. I'm not even sure if that works for mana and stam. Targeting. So whether you use target queuing or not will change a lot of this, but I don't use target queuing and I prefer my object delay as low as possible. Range check. If you set a last target and this is on and you go more than 12 tiles away, you will lose your last target. So generally don't want that on. Smart targeting is generally bad, doesn't work. I wouldn't recommend it. Additional options, counting stealth steps, pretty important if you're a stealth character. Some of these overlap. Block heal if target is poisoned. Definitely want this off. These settings don't necessarily need to change. This just makes one of my macros work. This honestly doesn't matter. Block heal if target is poisoned definitely matters though, because you can heal through poison on the server. Block, dismount, war mode. It's probably just a good setting, especially for newer players. This will keep you from accidentally double-clicking your mount for some odd reason. This is probably one of the most important settings you can turn off, so you don't kill yourself. The trap box, auto search new containers. Turn that off. This is another form of counters. You need that here. I don't use any of that. Bandage timer. I mean, if you're a Dexter, maybe this is important to you. For main PvP involving mages, probably don't need this. If you do, it's here. None of this matters. None of that matters. Arm dress, or whatever weapon you have, you can add it in here, and then you can go to hotkeys and find whichever one you made. There is a toggle version where you can toggle a weapon on and off. Say if you had a bow, that is how you would do that. Don't need to really change anything in here. Filters, I like to filter repeating system messages because it annoys me. And you can add in specific text filters, but you don't need to. If you are using a specific kind of targeting to target people and you want to ignore friends, you can add them in here and it will block them from certain types of targeting, and you can treat party members as friends to make targeting easier if you're cycling through people. Scripts and macros I'm not going to really talk about because that's just totally up to you if you need scripts or macros. Hotkeys that you need specifically for PvP would be a way to target people. Attack last target is really important to quickly attack your target. If you're dropping spells on them and you want to use your bow, whatever, you need that. You need attack last target. Last target, you have spell loaded and you use last target, you will cast that spell on that target. Next player target is a targeting method I use frequently. It will cycle through all of the players on your screen. And if you have it set to ignore friends, then that will not target them. You can also target a couple other ways. You want to specifically target murderers or innocents, or enemy targets, which will cover orange, white, and red. And set last target is a good one too, because you can set a person as your last target, and you can do this via their bar as well. So that's a good one to have. And target self is really important for being able to heal yourself or cast whatever spell on yourself